It was late, past midnight, the kind of night where the rain doesn't pour. It just hangs in the air, misting everything and swallowing up the horizon. Jason and I were driving back from a camping trip in northern Woodvale. The weather had turned bad earlier than expected, and we decided to take a shortcut through the old county road. A 2-lane stretch of asphalt that cut through miles of farmland and dense forest. The GPS barely worked out there. The only light came from the high beams cutting through the fog. "Man, this rain's brutal," Jason muttered, leaning forward over the steering wheel. "Yeah," I said, "just keep it slow." We'd been driving in silence for a while when the road began to twist downhill. That's when we saw it. A car pulled off to the side, hazard lights flashing weakly through the rain. A dark sedan, no movement inside. Jason slowed down. "You think they need help?" "I don't know," I said, "but it's the middle of nowhere, maybe." We pulled over about 20 feet behind it. Jason left the engine running while I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. The rain was colder than I expected. It soaked through my jacket instantly. I approached the driver's side window. The glass was fogged up, so I tapped it lightly. No response. Then I opened the door. Empty. The keys were still in the ignition. The wipers were frozen mid-swipe. The driver's seatbelt was unbuckled, hanging over the edge. "Jason," I called out. "There's nobody in here." He leaned out of our car window. "No one." I shook my head. "Nope, but they left everything. Wallet, phone, even a half-drunk coffee in the cup holder." Jason frowned. "That's weird." Something about the scene made my stomach tighten. It didn't feel like someone who'd broken down and gone for help. Felt abandoned. I looked around. The road stretched ahead into darkness, bordered by thick woods on both sides. No houses, no lights, just rain and fog. "Let's just call it in," I said. "Maybe the sheriff knows about it." Jason reached for his phone, but there was no signal. Of course.
"All right," he sighed.
"We'll drive until we get service, then report it." I turned to head back to the car and froze. There were footprints, fresh ones, visible in the mud beside the road. Barefoot by the look of them, they led away from the sedan and into the woods. Jason saw my face and followed my gaze. "No way," he muttered. The prints were spaced close together, like whoever made them was walking slowly. "Maybe they went to find help?" I said, but my voice didn't sound convincing. Jason shook his head. "In that direction, that's just trees." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was rain hitting the hood of the car. Then Jason said something that made me uneasy. "What if they're watching us right now?" I tried to laugh, but it came out flat. "Yeah, real funny." We got back into the car and pulled onto the road again. But something about that stretch felt wrong. The fog seemed thicker, the forest darker. After maybe 10 minutes, Jason slowed the car down again. Up ahead, in the middle of the road, was a figure. A man. He was standing perfectly still, facing our headlights. He wasn't wearing a coat, just a soaked t-shirt and jeans, his hair plastered to his face. Jason honked. The man didn't move. "Should we?" I started, but Jason cut me off. "I'm not stopping." He pressed the horn again, longer this time. The man finally turned. Not toward us, but to the side, like he was listening to something in the woods. Then he started walking. Not toward us, away down the center of the road. Jason carefully drove around him, keeping his eyes forward. I watched through the side mirror as the figure disappeared into the mist behind us. "Maybe that was him," I said. "From the car." "Maybe," Jason muttered. "Or maybe not." Neither of us spoke for the next half hour. The rain kept falling, and the road stretched endlessly ahead. Then, out of nowhere, the same car appeared. Same sedan. Same hazard lights flashing. Jason slammed the brakes. "What the hell?" We stared in disbelief. We hadn't turned around. We hadn't taken any exits. Yet there it was again, parked in the exact same position as before. "I don't get it," Jason said, his voice shaking. "How? Don't stop," I whispered. "Just keep going." He did. The tires splashed through puddles as we passed the car. I turned my head to look, and my blood ran cold. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat this time. A man. He was turned toward us, his face lit briefly by our headlights. Blank, pale, and smiling faintly. I blinked, and he was gone. Jason was gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles were white. "We're getting off this road," he said, voice trembling. We finally found a gas station 20 minutes later, near the county border. The clerk there was an older guy, maybe in his 60s. When we told him what we'd seen, he just gave us this strange look. "You boys took the old Miller Highway, didn't you?" Jason nodded.
Lumen sight.
"You're not the first. Couple years back, there was an accident out there. Young guy fell asleep at the wheel during a storm. Car spun out, killed him instantly. Folks still see his car sometimes." I felt my stomach twist. "You're saying what we saw?" He just shrugged. "Maybe the road remembers. Or maybe you just drove through the same nightmare twice." We stayed there until the rain let up. When we finally went back to check the highway the next morning, the car was gone. No tire marks, no footprints, no trace of anything. But sometimes, when it rains hard and I'm driving alone at night, I catch a flash of hazard lights in my mirrors, just for a second, and I swear, I can still see that faint smile through the glass. I used to run every evening after work, 5 miles around the old Graridge Reservoir. It was peaceful, quiet, and a good way to clear my head after long days in the office. That loop had become my routine for years. I knew every bend of the trail, every creaky signpost, every bench along the route. But one evening last autumn, something happened that changed how I feel about running alone forever. Started like any other weekday. The sun had just started to dip, staining the clouds with that orange glow that always looks beautiful over still water. The air smelled faintly of wet leaves. It had rained earlier that day, and I remember thinking how empty the trail felt. Usually, I'd pass a few dog walkers or joggers by the half-mile mark. That night, nothing, just silence. At around the 2-mile mark, the trail curves close to the woods, thick, dark trees that line one side of the reservoir. That's when I heard it, a cry. At first, I thought it was an animal, a long, drawn-out wail echoing through the trees. But then it came again. It was a woman's voice. It wasn't a scream exactly, more like a sob, sharp, broken, and desperate. I slowed my pace, pulling my earbuds out. "Hello," I called out. My voice carried across the empty trail. No answer, just the soft rustling of leaves. Then, a few seconds later, another sound, crying again, but closer this time. It seemed to be coming from inside the woods. I stood there for a moment, debating whether to go check. My instinct told me something was wrong, but I also didn't want to ignore someone who might be in trouble. The rational part of my mind said maybe someone had tripped or gotten hurt. So, against my better judgment, I stepped off the trail. The ground was muddy, my shoes sinking slightly as I followed the direction of the sound. The further I went in, the quieter everything became. No crickets, no birds, just the occasional drip of water falling from branches. Then I saw her. She was standing about 30 feet ahead, facing away from me. A woman in a pale hoodie, shoulders shaking as she cried into her hands. Her long hair was matted and dark, like she'd been in the rain for hours. I took a cautious step forward. "Hey, are you okay?" No response. I tried again, louder this time. "Do you need help? Should I call someone?" The crying stopped. She went completely still. I froze. For maybe 5 seconds, neither of us moved. Then, slowly, she turned her head, just enough for me to see half her face. Her skin was grayish pale, her eyes swollen and red, and there was something about her expression that didn't look right. It wasn't sadness. It was anger. I stumbled back a little. "Look, I'll get help, okay?" I said quickly, backing toward the trail. But before I could turn around, she screamed. It was an ear-splitting, guttural sound that didn't even seem human. I bolted, tearing through the trees until I hit the trail again, mud flying up my legs. I didn't stop to look back. I just ran. My lungs burned by the time I reached the parking lot. There were no other cars, no people, just mine sitting under the flickering streetlight. I jumped in, locked the doors, and tried to catch my breath. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely fit the keys into the ignition. That's when I saw movement in my rearview mirror. Someone or something walked out of the tree line. It was her. She was standing on the edge of the lot, staring straight at my car. Her head was tilted, and even from that distance, I could see that same strange, furious expression. I didn't wait another second. I threw the car into reverse, spun out of the lot, and didn't stop until I reached the main road miles away. That night, I barely slept. The scream kept replaying in my head, over and over. The next morning, I called the garage police and told them what happened. They said they'd send someone to check. Later that day, an officer called me back. He said they didn't find anyone. But then he asked me something that made my stomach drop. "Did the woman you saw look young?" he asked. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Maybe mid-20s. There was a pause. "Sir," he continued, "a woman matching that description went missing near the reservoir 3 weeks ago. We found her car in the woods, but her body hasn't been recovered." My throat went dry. I asked if it could have been her, maybe alive somehow, but he just sighed. "Her family already held a memorial last week," he said quietly. "It's unlikely she'd be out there." He told me to avoid that area at night, and I didn't argue. It's been almost 6 months since that night. I haven't gone back to Grayridge Reservoir, not even once. I tried running around other places, but I can't shake the memory. Every time I hear footsteps behind me or catch a reflection in the dark, I get that same rush of cold dread. Sometimes, though, I still drive past the reservoir on my way home from work. The lot looks empty, the trail hidden by the trees. But once, just once, I saw a pale figure standing near the waterline. Same hoodie, same long, dark hair, just standing there, watching. There's a small, abandoned apartment complex at the edge of Harrowfield, just off the main highway. I used to live there years ago before the place shut down. I worked as a night shift maintenance guy for the building, and when the new owners went bankrupt, the property was left half demolished and half forgotten. Sometimes, when I drive by, I can still see the faint outlines of the top floors against the skyline. Windows boarded up, glass cracked like broken teeth. That's where this story takes place. It was during one of the worst storms I'd ever seen. The rain came down in sheets, turning the parking lot into a shallow river. I'd been visiting a friend nearby and had to take shelter because visibility dropped to near zero. The closest safe spot I could think of was that old building, the same one where I used to work. I figured I could just wait out the storm inside. When I pulled into the lot, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the old structure. The paint had peeled off, vines were crawling up the walls, and most of the windows were shattered. Still, I felt a strange comfort, like revisiting an old ghost from my past. I grabbed my flashlight, pushed open the rusted side door, and stepped inside. The familiar smell hit me immediately: damp plaster, mold, and something faintly metallic. I flicked my light around the lobby. The front desk was still there, covered in dust and rainwater from the leaky ceiling. The elevator doors were pried open, the shaft dark as an endless pit. Thunder rolled outside. I made my way toward the back stairwell, the one I used to take to the 6th floor when I worked the night shift. The concrete steps were slick, my boots echoing with each careful move upward. By the 3rd floor, I started hearing things. Faint thumps, like footsteps. At first, I told myself it was just the storm, maybe loose pipes or debris falling from the roof. But then it came again, more distinct. Slow, deliberate steps above me. Someone else was in the building. I called out, "Hello? Anyone up there?" No response. I tightened my grip on the flashlight and kept going. When I reached the 5th floor landing, I noticed something strange. There was a light, faint, flickering, coming from one of the old apartments down the hall. I walked closer. The light looked like candle glow, which made no sense. There hadn't been electricity in that building for years. As I approached, I caught the faint smell of cigarette smoke. Then I heard it breathing. Someone was inside that apartment. "Hey!" I said cautiously. I didn't mean to trespass. Just waiting out the storm. The breathing stopped. I waited. Nothing. Then I heard the sound of a chair creaking slowly, and something scrape across the floor. That's when my flashlight flickered. Just for a second, but enough to make my heart drop. I turned the light toward the doorway, and there he was. A man, sitting completely still in the far corner of the room. He was facing the window, the candlelight barely revealing his silhouette. He looked like he was in his 50s, wearing a dark coat, drenched from the rain. His head hung slightly forward, as if he hadn't moved in hours. "Sir," I said, "you okay?" He didn't answer. The candle flickered again, and for the briefest moment, I saw his face. Pale, lifeless, eyes open wide but unfocused. Then I realized something horrifying. The man wasn't breathing anymore. The sound I'd been hearing, that slow, rhythmic inhale, was coming from somewhere else. Behind me, I turned. Nothing. Just darkness and the sound of rain hammering against broken windows. But then, faintly, I saw a shape at the far end of the hallway. A shadowed figure standing perfectly still. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stepped back into the apartment, trying to keep the flashlight steady. The beam caught the wall, then the floor, then landed on the chair again. Empty. The man was gone. I didn't think. I just ran. Down the hall, through the stairwell, slipping on wet concrete as thunder boomed overhead. I hit the lobby and threw open the side door. The rain smacked me in the face like cold needles, but I didn't care. I sprinted for my truck and slammed the door shut, fumbling to start the engine. When the headlights came on, they illuminated the front of the building, and that's when I saw it. A man standing in the doorway. Same coat, same lifeless eyes. He didn't move, just stared. Lightning flashed, and for a second, it looked like he was smiling. Then the light went out, and when the thunder rolled again, he was gone. I drove off that night, shaking so hard I could barely stay in my lane. A few days later, I mentioned what I saw to a local security officer who still patrolled that area. He told me something that made my skin crawl. Apparently, about a year after the building was shut down, a homeless man had been found dead on the 5th floor, sitting in a chair by the window, a half-burned candle beside him. The report said he died of exposure during a winter storm. They'd never removed the chair. Now, every time a heavy rainstorm hits Harrowfield, people swear they see a faint light flickering in that building again. Some say it's the candle. Others say it's him, still waiting out the storm.